Hey everyone, we're just going to wait a couple minutes to make sure that everyone has a chance to join in, and then we'll get started. I've actually got a good number, so I'm going to kick us off. Good evening and welcome to tonight's live online author event with Greenlight Bookstore. I'm Shanine. I'm thrilled to be hosting tonight's event with Bobby and Cheryl Love, launching their new book, The Redemption of Bobby Love, A Story of Faith, Family, and Justice. They will be talking with Brandon Stanton, so you're in for an excellent time. Before we start, I just want to say a huge thanks to Bobby, Cheryl, and Brandon and the team at Mariner Books for making this happen, and to all of you for showing up. A couple of housekeeping things. In the Zoom webinar tonight, you can see and hear the speakers, but they won't be able to see or hear you. But you can interact with the chat, where we encourage you to talk to the other attendees and with our panelists tonight. You can also drop in where you're listening in from. Give us a chance to see, what the span of tonight's event is. You can also ask specific questions that Brandon might be able to get to at the end of the event in the Q&A module at the bottom of your screen. It's two little speech bubbles. Make sure to put any questions you have there, because we'll only be taking questions from there and not in the chat. Most importantly, tonight's featured book, The Redemption of Bobby Love, is available for sale from Greenlight Bookstore, either in store or online. I'll be dropping the link a couple times in the chat to give you a chance to see it. Bobby and Cheryl will also be stopping in our store tomorrow to sign some copies, and you can request a signed or even personalized book by request. Make sure to indicate your request in the order comments at checkout when ordering online by midnight tonight, or look for signed copies in store. Our interviewer tonight is Brandon Stanton. Brandon is the creator of the #1 New York Times bestselling books, Humans of New York Stories, and Little Humans. His photography and storytelling blog, also called Humans of New York, is followed by a global audience of over 30 million people across several social media platforms. In addition to sharing thousands of stories from around the world, the blog has raised over $12 million for featured individuals and nonprofits. He will be speaking tonight with our featured authors, Cheryl and Bobby Love. Cheryl Love was born in New York. She's a wife, mother, and nutrition coordinator. Bobby Love was born in Greensboro, North Carolina. He is a husband, a father, and a professional cook. They both currently split their time between Brooklyn and the metro Atlanta area, where they live with their children. Their new book, The Redemption of Bobby Love, is the inspiring, dramatic, and heartwarming true account of a man and his wife of 35 plus years who never knew a secret, which captured the imagination of millions on Humans of New York. Their story is a tale of building a life from scratch, the pain of festering secrets in marriage, and the unbreakable bonds of faith and love that keep a family together. And I'm going to hand it off to Brandon to get us started. All right, thanks, Brandon.
Thank you, Shani. Thank you, everyone, for coming tonight. I'm very happy to be here with my good friends, the Loves. Our journey began with a day that I was on Twitter and I saw a tweet. People were tweeting at me all the time, and like 99% of the time I don't pay attention. But this one was like in all caps, like, Brandon, you gotta see this story. You gotta see this story. And I clicked on it and I started reading it and I said, wow, this really is something. And so I reached out and I got connected with you both, and spent several hours with you, learning your story and photographing you, and shared it on Humans of New York. And I was just looking back at it for the first time in a couple years, and looking at the massive response, and just how amazed at everybody was by your story, by the two of your stories. And I'm excited that you have turned it into a book. You partnered with a very talented writer and professor named Lori Tharps, who is a professor of journalism at Temple University. And wrote out and kind of filled in a lot of the gaps, and a lot of the so much of the story was people wanting to know more, wanting to know more, wanting to know more, wanting to know more. And so you have, sat down and kind of answered all the questions that people were asking, and kind of fleshed out this amazing story. The story, the way that it began on the blog, was Cheryl, you telling me about this morning, this strange morning in your life. You've been married to this man next to you, Bobby, for 40 years, and something strange happens one morning. Do you care to tell how the story started for you?
Sure. So that morning, I woke up early, as I usually did, to fix a cup of tea for myself. And my son, he was getting ready for an early class. So one of my boys was up, Jordan. And, I saw how I had prayer with him, and then he left for school. Okay. So I go back and have my cup of tea, get ready to sit down and have my tea. And there's this loud knock at the door, right? And both of us, Bobby, he's laying down and I'm up now. And I'm like, who is it? We both say, who is it? And they said, we want 2A. So I go to the door and I'm like, well, this is 2A. But when I open the door, to my surprise, NYPD, FBI, guns drawn, pushing me in, saying, stand back, ma'am. You don't know who this man is. And I'm like, what? They pushing me back and I'm like, oh my goodness. And me saying what, that's an understatement, okay? I was crying. I was like, what's happening? I had no idea what was going on. And so I look at Bobby, but Bobby's not looking at me. And I'm like, what's going on? What's happening here? They're not saying anything, but I see a semicircle that the cops had made around my husband. And he's standing up now, head is down. And I'm like, Bobby, what happened? Did you kill somebody? What's going on? And I'm crying. Then my other kids are up. So it's just a mess that morning. And I didn't hear what the cop said because he had pushed me back. But what did he say to you, honey?
He said, sorry, what's your name? And I said, Bobby Love. He said, no, your real name. And I said, Walter Curtis Miller. He said that I had a long run, and then they would proceed to more or less ask me stuff concerning my family and tell me a little bit about how they had, they started talking about how they came about finding me. And I said, oh, wow. And I'm just listening to them talk. My other two kids were standing at the door and they wanted to come to me and they was asking me also, or they were saying, what's wrong? What's going on? And I couldn't really tell them anything. Okay. So my wife was telling them that I was a diabetic and I needed medication. They told me they were going to arrest me, and they told my wife that also. And Cheryl would give me some cookies and stuff like that, and
so when did you and I of course I want to know your entire story, but Cheryl, when did you find out why the cops arrested Bobby?
Okay, I still didn't know anything. I just knew that they had arrested him. So, and that he needed his medicine and everything. So I was just worried about him. I was concerned. And I got a phone call from him, from Bobby. And he said, I'm at the Bellevue Hospital and they've given me my medicine. So I said, oh, great. And he said to me, Cheryl, this happened before us. This was before. I said, okay. I said, whatever it is, Bobby, whatever. But he couldn't talk long. All right. So I still don't know anything. But then right after that, it seems like it was a few minutes after, but it had to be a little longer. The attorney called me and she says to me, okay, Mrs. Love, when you go and see Mr. Love, you're going to say, ask for Walter Curtis Miller. And I said, okay. I said, is that the name of the facility? And that lady got so quiet. It was so quiet. And she said, no, ma'am, you're just going to say that name, Walter Curtis Miller. And I said, okay, and hung up. But as I hung up that phone, Brandon, it came to me. I said to Jesse, because Jesse was standing there, I said, oh, Jesse, that's your father's name, Walter Curtis Miller. Like pieces started coming together because I started thinking about his sister, Her name is Jean Miller Lavette. That Miller's right there. And then I guess the way that officer said to me, stand back, you don't know who this man is. It just came together. So that's how I figured out that the name change. I still didn't know about all the crimes and different things. So that was something.
What were the crimes, Bobby? Okay, so now in your words, why were the police looking for you? I mean, what was, now that we've got it from Cheryl's perspective, your story was coming to an end. A long journey for you was coming to an end that day. Can you tell me a little bit about your journey? Why were the police looking for you? What happened?
Okay, they were looking for me because someone called them and told them about me, and that I had escaped prison back in 1977 from the road camp in Raleigh, and I made my way to New York.
Why were you in prison?
I was in prison for armed robbery, and I had committed a few armed robberies with some other cats, and that's why I was in prison. I was given a 25 to 30-year prison sentence.
Yeah, and I think you and I talked a little bit about your background. I know you go into a lot of the history of that and kind of what led you down that road in your book. And I remember you told me that for a long time you were a model prisoner. You were one of the few. I think the reason so many people were captivated in your story is you always hear about the people who escape, and then 24 hours later you hear that they got found. You know what I mean? I think that's the you very rarely, if ever, hear about somebody who escaped and managed to stay escaped for 40 years. Can you tell me about why you decided to take this huge risk? And what it was that you did that allowed you to not get discovered until 40 years later.
Okay, I committed myself, and I made a commitment to myself that I would not get in any trouble. So I would work, and I met my wife in 1984, and we got together, and next thing you know, we're getting married in 85. And I was just committed myself to working. I had a couple of jobs, and I just worked. And the children started coming, and I had one daughter. 2 years later, my second daughter, and then 11 years later, my sons. So this was my life. My life was going to go this way, and I wasn't going to walk into any kind of trouble of any kind.
And I know you go into a lot of, it's an amazing story, and I know you go into a lot of detail in the book. Do you want to just give people the 60-second version of how it was that you even managed to escape prison?
Okay, I was put a coat in a bag one morning, and I walked out of the prison. Now that was like I did that to see if I could do it. This was a prison coat they gave me. So I put that in the coat in the bag, and I walked out. So then, by nobody stopping me to do that the morning I did that, I said I was going to get myself together, make a little bit more money. And when November came and it was getting colder, I said, I'm going. So I had a leather coat. I put the leather coat in a bag. I put my personal clothes under the clothes that I, normally worked in. And I walked out the gate that morning and got on the bus. And as we made a turn to getting into traffic, I jumped off the back of the bus, ran into the woods and dropped the clothes that was on, put my leather coat on, and went out the other side.
Yeah, and I think what is so amazing and what interested so many people about your story is, so that's the physical escape. Then you come to New York, and you create this whole new identity, this new birth certificate, new social security. You change your name to Bobby Love. You meet Cheryl, and I think why so many people are so captivated by your story. Beyond the escape element. I mean, first of all, it's I mean, that alone is a movie or a book. That's a man who escaped prison. But then, what happens is you one, completely redeem yourself. I think you're a tribute to what can be done outside the criminal justice system through your own willpower and your own desire to change. You stay out of trouble, you become a family man, you become active in your church. And then you meet Cheryl. And I think that's where the story just gets so much more layered, at least for me. It gets just so much more layered and so much more deep because you have this fascinating relationship story, this personal story about the relationship between a good woman. Cheryl, you're a good woman. I know you're a good woman. Just this good woman and this man who is, running away from his past, keeping a secret for 40 years. And then you get caught and Cheryl stays with you. She sticks with you. The forgiveness involved in that, the bonds involved in that. I mean, just narratively, it is a unbelievable story on so many different levels, which is why I was so excited to tell it and why so many people, connected with it so much. And so I know Cheryl, when I first approached you, because originally I was just going to interview Bobby, you didn't want to be involved. And it was just me and Bobby, and he was talking about you. I was like, who is this woman? Who is this woman that would stay with you, that would be there when you came home, who's still with you? Cheryl, I know you were reluctant. What was it like to, after so long thinking that's Bobby's story, I'm going to stay away, to decide to tell your side of the story too? What went into that decision? And what was it like for you to give your side of the story so publicly?
Okay. So at first, you're right. I did not want to have anything to do with telling that story, telling my story, telling my part of it. I told Bobby, I said, listen, if you want to, that's fine with me. You go ahead. I'll be with you. We'll talk. You can talk about it and I'll be in the background somewhere rooting you on. But what happened was, after this story had came out in Humans of New York, so many people, the comments that were coming in, my daughter said to me, Mommy, have you read these comments that they're writing you? And I said to her, I don't want to know. I haven't read them and I don't want to know. And she said, Mommy, you really should read them. So after she went away, she walked on upstairs. I sat down in that basement and I read those comments. And Brandon, I tell you, I said right there, I said, oh my God. I said, God, you are healing me. You're healing me right now.
Wow.
In these comments. It just touched me so. The women were saying things like, well, men and women, but women were really saying things to me like, oh, Auntie Cheryl, I'm so glad you stayed with your band. I'm so glad you stuck in there. I'm so glad you kept your marriage together. I'm so glad you did this. And all this positive stuff where I was trying to hide it. Mm-hmm. I said right there, I said, Lord, I said, this story has to be told. I said, this is helping someone. And then I read things that they were saying about my husband. They were saying, one gentleman had said he was about to leave his marriage, leave his wife. He said, but what he had done or whatever was going on in their relationship wasn't half as the things that Bobby had done or what was going on in our relationship. So he said, I'm so glad. He was saying to Bobby, I'm very glad you stayed. And that made me stay with my marriage and stick with it because it gave me hope. And I said, look at this. So, and the whole thing was just therapeutic, even getting the whole story out, writing it.
You said it was healing. What would you say you most needed to hear? Well, what was for imagining you in that basement reading those comments and this healing? What is the thing that you read that you most needed to hear?
Well, this woman, she said, I'm so glad that you didn't isolate yourself. You told the story. You let it out. You let out so we could help other people. Mm-hmm. And I didn't think by me saying anything that I was helping. I thought the more I was closed mouth, then that would be the best thing. But it wasn't. And I learned that we have to speak. We have to be kind to one another. We have to speak. We have to forgive. It's so important. All of it. It's important because if you don't forgive, you're bitter, you know? And so I did not want that. And we did not want that in our marriage. We talked about that. We discussed it. And that was it. I have to forgive so we could go on.
And I think that's what's, so amazing about your character. And I think so many people just say, how? Like, share. So, I mean, and I think, when I was asking you guys these questions, Bobby, you were sitting there, I was being tough on you. I was saying, all right, Cheryl, what do you say to the people who say, how could you possibly forgive a man that lied to you for 40 years? Have some self-respect, walk out the door,
Right.
But what's your answer to those people? Why did you think it was so important to forgive as opposed to say, this does not deserve a second chance?
Okay. Well, first of all, I had to get real with myself. I had to really sit down and come to the realization that this man, my husband, that you've been married to for all these years, has deceived you. He wasn't lying to me every day, but he deceived me. And so once I got over that and came to the realization and the truth of that, I said, okay, my next question was, do you want to continue to be with him? Are you going to stay in this marriage? And my answer to that, it wasn't yes right away. I had to think about it. There was a mother in my church that said to me, golden little nuggets that these people gave me. She said, honey, everybody has a past, but that doesn't make you who you are now. That hit me like, absolutely. Then my godmother told me, it could have been so different. Things could have been so different. Somebody's life could have been lost. Yeah, but this is your husband. This is you. Anything. I could have been going to the loony bin crazy over something like this. Be thankful for where you are and where you're at right now. Because it's a blessing. It's a blessing. And now the truth is out. It's all out. We are in a better place, a better time. And I was mad at that person that told on Bobby. I was quite upset with them. But as I look at it now, God bless them, because I wouldn't be where I am right now. I wouldn't be where I am right now. So I'm just thankful.
What did you learn about Cheryl through all of this, Bobby? Obviously, we just found out what you learned, what we learned, what these, let's call it 2 years, the year that you got caught, you went back to prison for a short amount of time, got paroled. Obviously, Cheryl learned so much about you during this time. What did you learn about Cheryl through this process of going through this with her?
I knew all the time that she was brutally honest. Okay. And I figured that, once she said that she would stay with me, and she said she wanted to know everything. So I told her everything. And then there was some little things that came up as I would talk about things. She said, oh, you didn't tell me that. I said, well, I'm telling you now. So it was becoming, whereas once I started telling her everything, I told her everything. I try not to leave nothing out. She questioned me about North Carolina. She questioned me about Washington, D.C. And I tried to just let her know everything. But she had already said that she was going to stay with me. So we went
honest. That was one thing.
Yes.
How else did your behavior change towards Cheryl after all this came to light?
Oh, my behavior towards her just kept getting higher. It was never, once she said she was going to stay with me, man, it made my day, made my hour, made my everything. Okay. So that in itself, made me feel great, and then when she started asking me questions and she wanted to know this and wanted to know that, I told her everything.
What do you love most about that woman?
Her.
Yeah.
Her life, her everything. There's nothing that I wouldn't do for my wife. I pray for her. We have 4 amazing kids. I thank her every day for my children. We have a grandson now.
And Cheryl, what have you learned about Bobby through all this? And it's like, it's not only through the experience, like you've been through 2 experiences. One, you know, the shock of the arrest and learning all this about him, but then you 2 kind of embarked on this journey of telling your story together. I mean, that involves sitting down for hours, you know, with Lori and really digging into, you know, what did you learn about Bobby, and what have you learned about Bobby? I mean, obviously, so he's more honest now. How would you say he's changed towards you in the relationship? Now that you forgave him, you gave him the ultimate gift, the gift of forgiveness that very few people would be able and strong enough to do. How have you felt that your marriage has changed now in the aftermath of it?
Okay, I can definitely say that it's way better. It's we're more open to each other. We have eye contact. We look at each other more, right? We smile.
Well, tell me about the eye contact. Was there not, did you notice something those other 40 years that was a little off?
Not so much with the eye contact. Like I could have a conversation with him. We could sit down, we could talk. But when I get to certain things, like I would think he's not being very affectionate with me, I sometimes Bobby would just shut down, you know? And I'm like, are you okay? Is everything all right? You know, listen, if you don't want to be here, you can go, you know? I would say things like that because I said, maybe he has another family. I'm thinking things like that. You have another family somewhere? I asked him. And he said, oh, Cheryl, no, nothing like that. Don't think like that. No.
Yeah.
But so he said no and seemed like he just decided to still be around. He was here. He was working 2 and 3 jobs. I even talked to my girlfriends. I just feel something is off. I don't know. I think he's hiding something from me. And they were like, girl, please, what are you talking about? Bobby works 2, 3 jobs. Bobby, I see Bobby cooks for you. I see you get the things you want. You go on vacation. You're putting too much into it. But I would also have this recurring dream that there's this thick rope coming out of his mouth. And I would have that dream a couple of times. Yeah. So that told me something. That let me know he has something to tell you, but he was holding it back.
Wow.
So
I'll ask one more question because we're going to open up to questions for the audience. And so I will say to the audience, I think I was supposed to do that beforehand. There's a little Q&A functionality at the bottom of your Zoom. We have 6 questions so far. So if anybody has a question you'd like me to ask Bobby and Cheryl, I'm going to go to that in a second after my next question. So you can write out your question in the Q&A section. So I guess, you know, the cliche interview wrap-up question. What do you hope people will get out of this book, and what's next for you? Either of you can answer.
Well, I hope people will get out of the book the meaning of being who we did or what we did to help out each other and our family. They can learn from, you know, I mean, talk to each other, you know, put everything on the table. Don't leave nothing out, you know. These things that happen in life, you know, you shouldn't just walk away from it, you know, just like that, you know. Work at it, you know. It's you know, you made that commitment, you know, you said for better, for worse, live that, you know.
What about you, Cheryl?
I want people to feel inspired by the book. I want them to know that there's always hope. Don't give up. Forgive. That's very important. But always know that there is hope. There's something better, always better. You know, if you communicate, if you talk it out, don't just hold things in. That's what, and you can be a true, authentic self.
Man, talking with you guys, I'm just reminded why this is just the greatest story ever told. I mean, the reason it's just like you have 2 protagonists, you have 2 journeys going on. This unbelievable suspenseful journey through the world that Bobby's going on, running for the police for 40 years. And this unbelievable emotional I mean, both of you you're going on a physical journey, he's going on a spiritual journey, but like your spiritual journey, the emotional journey you went on is just one of the greatest stories ever in itself. And then Bobby's physical journey through the world running for the police is just one of the greatest stories ever. And just the two of you two combined, it's just, it is just such an amazing story. And I'm just reminded talking with you guys, because it's been 2 years since we told it. And I'm just, I'm so excited that you guys decided to write it all out. I know I know how much you guys have got coming towards you. So it's, I know how many lives it's going to touch and how many people it's going to change. And I'm so excited for you guys.
Thank you for that.
And I'm just reminded all over, I'm given those feelings I had again the first time we ever talked, which is just like, oh my gosh, these two people have the most amazing story I have ever heard in my life. And it's because of you two. You know, you're wonderful people. You've been through so much. But you know, you've also gone on very deep spiritual and emotional journeys, and that's what makes it resonate, and that's why it's going to be so lasting. So thank you. I'm going to click over, and I think I'm supposed to say now, everybody go buy the book. I think there's a section that the moderator said, Brandon, just remember to remind people. So that's what I'm going to do, that if you would like to buy and support the Loves and read this amazing story in its entirety, there is a link, or there will be a link somewhere. You can, hold on. You can read more. Oh, yes, there's information that's in the chat box right now. Man, I love you two so much. You guys are so great. Okay, here we go. Okay. So we have a question. How long did it take Cheryl to forgive Bobby after she found out the truth?
I'm gonna say it really wasn't that long, because and I'll have to say, because I have a strong faith in God, and I knew Bobby loved me, and I felt like he would do the same thing for me. But it wasn't just that. I just felt at that moment, I did feel embarrassed, but I just felt that I'm going through, this is my husband, and I'm gonna go through it with him. So I think I answered.
Let me dig a little deeper there.
Okay.
Are there days where you have to re-forgive? Do you withdraw that forgiveness sometimes, and then you have to go through the process all over again? You know, how much? Because you know, it's one thing. I know, you know, when the story comes out and everybody's, that's when it's easiest to forgive, when everybody's congratulating you and thanking you for forgiving. But you know, relationships are hard, marriage is hard, and you go back and like, you know, are there times where you have to fight that battle all over again?
Well, marriage is hard, but the thing about it is, now when we have a conversation, we sit down and we talk it through all the way. And if somebody can't talk about it right then, we'll say, okay, I can't talk about that right now, but we're going to come back to it. And we know that we're going to get through it. We're going to come back to it. It's not going to be any holding back, but I have to go in the next room for a little bit, Bobby, or he'll have to take a nap. So, but yeah, it's not, I mean, I think that's part of marriage. Forgiving,
compromise.
Yes. You just have to work it out. You have to sit down and know your partner and sit and talk things out.
Logan has asked a question that was actually on my list and we didn't get to it. Bobby, would you have ever revealed this if you hadn't got caught? Like, and then my second question onto that is, like, was there part of you that was just like, this story's too good? You know, it's got to be told sometime. Like, what was your plan if you had never gotten caught? On one, were you ever going to reveal it to Cheryl as a husband? Two, were you ever going to reveal it to the world about this incredible life that you had lived?
Okay. Answering the first question, I started writing back when we got married, back in the 80s. I was writing and I told Cheryl, and she asked me about what I was writing. And I didn't tell her anything, but she read it anyway. She read something and it was about Stevie Wonder and one of his songs, Living for the City. So she couldn't put it together concerning, me coming to New York and, the part of that song that says about, hold it, I'm getting on that bus like that.
Mhm.
So that's how I started writing. Okay. Cheryl is brutally honest, like I said before. And I know she would have told me, you go turn yourself in.
I think he needs.
That was, I was.
What about on your deathbed? Like, did you have a plan? Like, if it comes to the end, I'm gonna tell her, or you just said, I'm gonna go and she's gonna always know me as Bobby Love?
I did tell her sometime,
Well,
maybe a year or two
no,
later.
it wasn't that long.
Well, anyway, I told her that I was going to do a will in a video, and that was going to be on my deathbed that they would tell her.
I'm just imagining Cheryl watching that video.
I said that would have been the worst thing you could have done to me, because number one, I wouldn't have been able to say, "Oh, you what? Get back." That's number one. But I said, "Oh my goodness, no! You couldn't have told." So he was thinking about
Brandon.
not saying
the worst thing I ever had or did was going to jail. Jail is no joke.
Yeah.
And I did not, under any circumstances, want to go to jail.
Well, that's actually one of the questions from Brian. What was your prison experience like, and how did you get the courage to try to escape? I mean, very few people take that risk. I mean, what pushed you to that point?
Well, back in '77, jail was different. I was a younger man also. And I was doing good, but they moved me from job to job because of, I got some write-ups. So after getting those write-ups, I just said, I got to go. I'm getting out of here. And I told you about the bag under my arm and stuff like that. And, that was my rehearsal when I first went there with the bag under my arm, and then got a little bit more money. I worked a few more weeks, we was getting $5 $5 a week for working $1 a day. So I had a little bit more money in my pocket, and I said, I'm gonna go. That was in November.
Wow. A question from Rakia. How have your children reacted to both of your stories? That's a great question. Being so public, because that's their lives too, what has their response been?
my children, they were all for Bobby from the beginning, for their father from the beginning. And they were with me, like when we went to go to Rikers, my oldest daughter and her son and her husband would drive us up there all the time. So we would go every chance we could. Somebody was there at the prison to speak to Bobby, to be there with him and talk to him. And they were always for him. They told me from the beginning, Mommy, we love Daddy and we're gonna be with him. And one of my daughters said, you staying with Daddy? I said, yeah. I said, yes, I'm gonna stay with him. So they were on board the whole time. And even when Bobby was locked up in Rikers, the boys, they were in school, but there's teachers that would let them come out with me on days when he had to be in court. So they were all for him,
Do you view those 40 years before the truth? How do you view those 40 years? Do you view it as lost time? Do you view those 40 years as a lie? Do you how do you process those 40 years where he was there?
Yeah.
But not, I don't even know how to say it, not all there, not
right.
Yeah.
Well, that's the times when I would pray, I would ask for guidance. I also had a dream where my mother was in this dream. My mother had passed away when I was 9 years old, but I had this dream where she had this beautiful smile And it almost was just letting me know, and the whole family was in this picture, and it was just like letting me know everything's going to be okay. Don't leave. Everything's going to be okay. Bobby might not be the best communicator talking with you, but everything is okay. So I just get myself together, change some furniture around, get some new recipes going, buy some new plants or something, and just keep on. Because like I said, he wasn't going any place. We still had fun together. We went on vacations, we talked, but it was just certain times I noticed that I feel like I'm not getting everything I need from this man. He's not telling me everything.
You said he didn't always deceive you. You said he deceived you, but he didn't always. So what was real about it? There was obviously huge parts that weren't real. What was real about it?
What was real was that he was working, I didn't see any evidence of another family. I didn't see those things. I said he loved me. We embraced each other. We had the children. Bobby would make sure that we ate before he ate. He wanted to make sure we were taken care of. He brought me beautiful things. We went out, we went to concerts, everything. So, and another thing I want to say, I didn't know Walter Miller. I didn't know that guy. I didn't know Walter Curtis Miller or those things that he did. I knew of Bobby Love and who Bobby was to me and what he was doing for me. He wasn't trying to hurt me. None of the things. I wasn't looking for anything bad on him because, he was my husband. I didn't think anything bad like what had came out, but he was my husband, and I just was like, I wanted my marriage to work. That's it.
Bobby, if I had talked with you, 3 years before you were caught, you'd have this crazy past. You have 2 lives you lived, Walter Miller and his Bobby Love. And if I was to ask you and I knew everything about you and you were being absolutely honest with me, and I was to say, Bobby, are you a good man? What would you say, and why or why not?
Of course, I would say I'm a good man. I wouldn't down myself, and if you'd have came to me without anybody else and, said that, hey, I look you up on the computer and I think you got a book in yourself. I think I would have tried to write that book with you or whoever without telling any kind of stories or letting any stories get to Cheryl.
Did you view the concealment as a problem? Did you view it as an ethical problem when you were doing it? Or in your mind, were you just in the place where if nobody knows, it'll never hurt anybody? Where were you in your mind about it?
My mind was that I'm all right. I'm doing things that I should be doing, but I just got this on my back. That's, it's over my head. I don't forget it, but it's there. And I'm doing everything I can to provide for my family. Now
that you're past it and you're on the other side, was it affecting you more than you realized, the lie?
I really don't think so. I really don't. I had my relatives telling me that I had a sister that told me I should tell Cheryl. And then I had a nephew that told me I should tell Cheryl. But I took them down. They met my family. They came to North Carolina, and before my brother-in-law passed, he wanted to see my kids, my 2 daughters. They stayed with them for a couple of weeks. But turning myself in, that just wasn't on the table.
When you looked in the mirror, did you see Bobby Love or did you see Walter Miller pretending?
I saw Bobby Love. I was a new man, a new creature. I would, okay, let me tell you a story. I just got a phone call from a friend of mine last night. He saw the book down in Florida. And we ran across each other way back when I was working for a car company. And I was with some friends, and he was with some people that he working for. Well, he had these guys. He worked in this group home. So when he started to say something to me in terms of maybe saying my name, I said, man, I gotta go. He brought that up last night. And I was near Madison Square Garden, and the guys that I was with, we would walk on up and hurry up and get on up near Madison Square Garden. And he brought that conversation up last night because he saw the book.
How did you view Walter Miller? Did you have contempt for him? Were you compassionate towards him? Did you just view him as stupid and immature? And Walter Miller, referencing the early part of your life before you redeemed yourself and became Bobby Love. I mean, how did you view the person you used to be?
Oh, I was immature. I didn't think about doing anything. I just went out and did it when I was younger. I wanted things. And I mean, I had a lawnmower one time for cutting grass. I used to go to golf course, but those things came slow. So that's when I started doing other things.
What is something you're still trying to change about yourself?
I think I'm still learning my walk with God. I'm still in the process of learning how to deal with things that I have no control over.
Like what?
Well, there's times that, things happen. Things have happened in church. And I see that I should say something, but I don't. I try not to get too much involved with some people and their lives and stuff like that.
Cheryl, what about you? How are you still trying to grow?
Mm-hmm. Well, me, I'm becoming every day.
I know you are.
Never
Are you having fun with this, Cheryl? Are you having fun, or are you having fun with this? Or are you still the person that wants to hide and doesn't want to?
No more hiding. No
you're
more.
enjoying it. I hope you're enjoying it.
Out. You have to talk. You have to get it out. Yes.
I'm glad, because I mean I know every time somebody listens to you that you make them happy. So I'm glad that you're having fun too. Let me see if there's new questions that I missed here. We got just a few more minutes. Claire, did you live with the fear of getting caught? Can you talk about that fear? And how did it progress as time went by? I imagine it was very acute at the beginning. And then how did you live with it and manage that fear?
I didn't live with fear. I would go where I wanted to go. I would take my kids where they wanted to go. We went to the movies. We went to Yankee Stadium. I just went places and did my life and lived a life that I knew was the right life to live as I lived. I made sure I didn't go to high-end places where things would happen, and cops would raid the places and stuff like that. I mean, I knew places that, there used to be a club up here on Flatbush Avenue. And that's when me and Cheryl was first in our marriage. And we used to go dancing and stuff like that. But that wasn't one of the places we went.
Was there ever a time when you're like, oh, the jig is up? Was there ever a time you were convinced you were about to get found out?
Yes. One night I was at 42nd Street, and they had this thing called decoys. So I'm walking down 42nd Street, and it's a Saturday night, and the guy hit me from the back. And I told him, I said, what's wrong with you? He was pretending to be drunk, but he wasn't. He was a cop. He had a knapsack on his back, and he would have money sticking out of the knapsack. So 3 times this guy pushed me. 3 times he hit me in the back. Finally, last, I pushed him back and I grabbed the $5 that was sticking out of the bag, and I was arrested. I was put in one. That's when they had those box yellow cabs, and they took me down to Center Street, 1 Center Street. I spent that night there, and then that next day, a lawyer came and said he was my lawyer, and he would said that he was going to have the officer that did this, have me in court. And I told him the story and everything that had happened. And when I went to court, that's when they used to have night court. So when I went to court that Sunday night, the judge said, go home. He said, Bobby Love, go home. The officer told the truth, and the judge said, what is this decoy stuff? So these cops was on the street trying to get people to take money because they got the money sticking out of their bag, and I wasn't the only one that got arrested like that. It's quite a few other guys,
Well, and I guess the flip question to that, Cheryl, is what was the moment you were most suspicious? Was out of the whole time, what was the moment that caused you to wrinkle your face the most out of all 40 years and say, what just happened?
Well, remember now, I'm not thinking I'm not suspicious of him. I'm not thinking he's done any robberies or things like that. It's just some things like he didn't like to take pictures. And I was like, you don't like to take pictures? He wouldn't take pictures that often. He would do it. If I said, come on, take this picture, he'll do it. But you really had to egg him on, like, come on, take this picture. But otherwise, he really didn't like it. He didn't like to take pictures. And like, no, sure, I'm not taking no pictures. So that kind of like, what? And when he proposed to me, he said to me, do you want to get married? Let's go get married in Jamaica. And I said, Jamaica? No way. I'm not going to Jamaica to get, why you want to get married in Jamaica? So I asked him after everything had came out, I said, was that why you wanted to get married in Jamaica? He said, no. He said, I just wanted a nice place for us to go to get married.
My response to Cheryl when she talked about pictures back then, I didn't know where these pictures might end up.
Right.
That was my thoughts about pictures all the time, because her god sister, she was always taking pictures. Cheryl's sister was always taking pictures.
And I think another thing that's interesting about your story, there's so many interesting things, is that, again, in a time when so many people are talking about the criminal justice system, retribution versus, rehabilitation, here you are an example of a man who, outside of the criminal justice system, rehabilitated himself.
Yes.
So let me ask you, what punishment do you think you deserved for your crimes?
When I first got sentenced?
Yeah, or just for what I would say when you first got sentenced. Yeah.
Okay, well, I was young, stupid, and ignorant back then. And whatever they gave me, I felt like this was, because I think I had 3 charges. So from all the other people.
What would you like to see happen to another young man who was in the same position and committed the same crimes as you and was facing a judge today? What would you like to see happen to that young man?
I would like to see that man plead for his life, to say something positive about how he has learned in this experience. If it's been, I don't know, less than a year or a year, that you have been waiting to come to trial, or dealing with your family or your family and your lawyer, you gotta ask for the mercy of the court.
And what do you think the court should do? How do you think the society should treat an individual who is in the same position as you were all that time ago?
I think it's you know, I can't say that they should do what I did or get what I got. I would think that their situation might be different than what mine is, or my situation might vary from, you know, whatever it is. But the court systems and right now, man, it's all messed up and it's all jumbled up, you know, and I don't think anybody's trying to fix that, you know. This governor that we have now, the lady, you know, from what I understand, she let a lot of people out of Rikers Island recently. They were not hard-nosed criminals. They had some of them, I think some of them was like, you know, mostly not felons, but, you know, misdemeanors, you know. And
Well, yeah,
right,
go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
right now, you know, with things going the way they're going, and you know, Rikers Island is, you know, nobody wants to work there. You know, there's reasons that they don't want to work there with, you know, the inmates. The inmates are jumping on the people, and especially, you know, you got women over there and they trying to do everything they can. And, you know, they still trying to figure out how they can close it. And, you know, hopefully that would do a lot better. That'll be a lot better, you know.
Well, I mean, hopefully, and I imagine it will, your book will become an important part of the conversation moving forward, because I think, you know, it has a lot to say about that as well. Well, I've enjoyed this. Thank you so much. It's so good to see you guys. Again, like this whole conversation, I'm just reminded about the feeling that I had 2 years ago when I was first sitting in front of you guys at the same time. It's like, oh my gosh, this story is so good. And it's so good because you two are such interesting and compassionate and wonderful people. So thank you so much. It's great to see you as always. And I believe Shani from Greenlight. Hello, right on time.
Thanks, Brandon.
Go ahead.
Basically the same. That was so amazing. Thank you so much for being here, Mr. and Mrs. Love. And Brandon, thank you for a great conversation. We all look forward to reading the book. And I hope that anyone who hasn't yet gets a chance to pick up a copy, either from the store or online. And that's basically it. Link is in the chat. Thanks, everyone. Have a great night.
Thank
All
you.
right,
Good night.
God bless you and thank you.